Hey everybody, welcome back. And today we're going to talk about file management and how Pro Tools organizes and keeps track of all of your files during sessions and in between sessions and that kind of thing. So we're going to be working on a Mac today. If you have Windows, just realize a lot of the same principles, a lot of the same concepts that I'm going to talk about are still applicable to your system. It's just going to be slightly different. Okay, on a Mac, the Finder is the window manager, while on Windows, they have the Explorer that essentially launches Windows for you to browse through your system files and all the things that you have. When we first start a computer and log in, we're sitting here looking at our desktop, right? So on the desktop, that is going to be part of your user profile. Okay, so if I was to create something here, we have a new folder now. Okay, this folder, yeah, it's just going to be sitting here on the desktop, but realize that saves to a folder called desktop in your user profile, which is a directory on your system. Now, let's take a look here. We can see I've got several hard drives on my system, and I've got one of them partitioned off to create a Time Machine backup drive that runs for my actual system drive. Okay, on my system drive, I have nothing but my applications, my operating system, the things that I absolutely crucially need in order to have a functional computer here. Anything else that I'm working on, audio projects or anything that I'm saving, I've got several different physical hard drives in the computer that are going to take those and have different jobs. My storage 2, I've got all my installers that I have in case I have to completely wipe my system out. I can redo all my installers. I save all of that, on my storage 1. That's where I keep all my audio projects and sound libraries, and actually have my personal user accounts on here. Okay, so if we look in storage 1, we can see my account is living in there, and here's my desktop folder, and here's that untitled folder that we created on the desktop, which I don't want because I don't keep things on my desktop. So that's now in the trash, and that means it's gone from the desktop itself. Okay, so on a Mac, you have options to where your user account. Now here, I'm going to have to authenticate this real fast. There we go. And my advanced options, if you right click, it will pull up all of these things. Now, you do not want to be messing around with all of this stuff if you're not already set up and ready to do it. Okay, so basically, if you're on a Mac and you have everything backed up and you're ready to trash your system or have some serious problems, you can copy your users folder that comes with the initial system install into a separate drive like I have done here. And then once that folder is copied cleanly into that new external drive, then you can choose a new location for your home directory. Okay, what that means is if I ever have to completely reinstall my entire system, then nothing that's a part of my user profile gets changed or altered or lost because all of that is saved off here. That also means if I end up downloading a whole lot of stuff or putting a bunch of things on my desktop, none of that is actually on my system drive. Okay, that's all going into the storage drive. So it's just one thing that I do to mitigate and manage any kind of impact on my system drive, and also to make it easier if I ever did have to completely reinstall all my OS and all my software and all of that. It manages my own private, personal files and things like that to not be a part of that system drive that would have to be formatted in order to make that happen. Okay, so there's that. The other thing is on a Mac, we can go into utilities and we can open up disk utility. And in disk utility, that shows us all of our internal hardware, the drives themselves. Okay, and then within those individual drives, it gives us the ability to partition or to erase or to run a first aid or whatever. So here on this particular drive, I have partitioned where storage 2 gets a certain amount of space, and then my backup drive, okay, gets a certain amount of space carved out of that. If we look at the partition map, you can kind of see where that is, as I only saved 200 gigs for Time Machine to work, which is plenty. It's fine. All that's running again is my system. If something goes wrong, I can open up Time Machine and go back and maybe restore some files and stuff. So let's take a look at Pro Tools. Let's take a look at a session that we got going on here. And this will do here. Okay, so when we open up a Pro Tools project, okay, that project is going to be a directory, a folder, essentially. In that folder, there's going to be the PTX files themselves. Those PTX files are the actual Pro Tools session file. It's basically just a map, all right, to all of the resources that that session is going to use. Okay, in this folder, you're going to have certain things that get automatically created as you're doing things, okay? One of those things being session file backups. This is a pretty important thing. Whenever you're actually working on a mix, all right, every time that you have that Pro Tools open, it will start saving these backups so that if something crashes or if something doesn't get saved or if a half hour ago you had something in a really good place and now all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, what have I done? You can go and restore one of these session file backups just by opening it up and be back to whatever time and date it was that you were working on that session. All right. Now, the most important thing and the biggest thing that I see people have problems with is audio files. By default, Pro Tools is going to be looking for the audio files folder that lives in the project folder. Okay, so when you create this Pro Tools session, it's going to create this project folder. This session is now going to be looking to the audio that's in this folder right here. Okay, if for whatever reason, let's say you took your Pro Tools session out and you just threw it out on your desktop and just went, all right, here we go. Now we're going to work on Pro Tools. Where is Pro Tools going to be looking for audio here? It's going to be looking to the project folder. So what folder is this session in right now? Well, it's in that desktop folder, right? So when we look in here, what else is in the desktop folder? There's nothing in here, okay? So let's go ahead and open up this session off of the desktop with no audio files associated with it and see what happens here. Okay, so now we can see we've got a bit of a problem here. We are missing all of our audio files. So we don't want to automatically find. We definitely don't want to skip. We're going to manually find and relink our audio files. So we're going to click that and hit OK. Okay, so now in our relink window, this is telling us that all of these files that are supposed to be in this session, Pro Tools last had record of those exist in my storage drive in my desktop. Okay, but there is no audio files folder in my desktop. Okay, where the files actually are, it's supposed to be in my audio drive. Okay, and in that audio drive, there is a session called Virtual Console Project. That's where it's supposed to be. Okay, so what we need to do is select all, just shift and click on the top and bottom, and aim to search in the volumes, storage, audio, in the folder where they're supposed to be. And let's go ahead and find those links. Okay, when we hit find links, we give the option to do all these different things. It's just usually fine to just leave everything exactly as it is. We want to find it by the name and the file ID and the same format and same duration. We are essentially just trying to find the exact same file. So because I told it exactly where to look, it found them all very quickly. If we weren't really sure, then we could uncheck all this stuff and just have it check all the volumes, every hard drive on my system until it finally found the actual audio files. But it helps to know where they actually were. So now we want to commit those links. And yes. All right. Now the links are committed. All of the files are back in the session where there's. And now we have a bit of a problem here because we have, if we look at my desktop, we have files just littered all over my desktop now. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is get back in here and back to window. There we go. Okay, now if we look under the window manager and look in the new workspace, because we don't have one open right now, we're just going to open up the default workspace browser. Okay, in the workspace browser, oops, lost it. Let's get that back. In the workspace browser, we're going to make that nice and big. Here we go. And we have in our locations our virtual console project itself, the PTX file. Okay, that virtual console project is composed of all of our audio files as well. So if we look at all these audio files, all of these files, if we scroll all the way over, look for our path, okay, we can now see that this is linked to the storage drive audio project directory path. Okay, so they're no longer saved with this particular copy of this session. So I want to fix all of this mistake. I want to fix all of this craziness and everything being missing from where it's supposed to be here. So what I want to do now is right click with everything selected. Just click and then shift click. Right click on all of them and let's choose copy and then relink. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to copy those audio files from where they were to where our session is currently. Okay, right now we're on the desktop. There's an audio files folder with nothing in it. So we're going to copy all of those audio files into that audio files folder on the desktop. And then after they're copied, Pro Tools is going to relink them all until now they're all stored on the desktop folder itself. So let's take a look here and make sure, okay, we have all of our audio back. Everything's good. And now I'm going to save this session and we're going to quit Pro Tools completely. So now on our desktop, we have an audio files folder. We want to check in there real quick, make sure all of our files show up, and they do. And now we have a little mess to clean up here. So let's get everything kind of set in the middle where we can select them all. And on a Mac, you can right click and choose new folder with selection. And name this something appropriate, like restored session name for now. We need to deal with the location problem. We can't keep it on the desktop. So we'll open up our audio folder in our storage drive, separate partition, drop that on in there, and now it lives where it is supposed to live, and it is associated with where it is supposed to be. So let's open it up from that location and make sure we don't have any problems here. So open it up and find it in the storage drive, and let's see what happens. Now we have back our session, and if we look in the workspace window again and find our project and find our audio files and take a look at the path. Whoops. We now have the path for our audio is in our storage one in the audio folder in the restored session name, and then in our audio files folder there, which would be storage one, audio, restored session name, audio files, and they're all back where they are supposed to be. So that's the main thing, is to make sure that you are keeping track of your sessions in a folder in the default locations that they are supposed to be in, or in other words, that Pro Tools is going to be looking for them. And if they're not in that direct audio files folder that is right next to your session file itself, then it's going to cause problems. And you're going to need to get in here and get into the workspace browser and get into your actual session settings and get into the audio files that are located in that session. And you're going to make sure that the path to those audio files is correct and that they are there. And you don't want to go moving things around while Pro Tools is open or copying files in places. If you're going to do any changes, do it within the relink window or within the relink commands that are every time you right click on files in your workspace browser. All right.